Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. Well, today is a continuation. We got to talk to Charli Turner Thorne, the Arizona State University women's basketball coach. She has been at ASU 25 years now. She's the winningest coach at ASU history, and she was our first guest on really this journey that Kathy and I have committed to on how women win our way. So hope you listened to her. If not, go back, listen to her talk. She really shared what is it and how do we go from struggle to success and actually embrace the struggle. So Kathy and I are here today to really talk to you about really the how can we take what we learned from Charli, think about what's going on in our life as women, and figure out how to really manage success and struggle in a way that helps us win our way. So Kathy, thank you for joining me again today. And thank you for just agreeing to be on this great journey that you and I are committed to. I know we're loving the journey ourselves. We chat all the time about what about this and what about that. And so here we are, we got our first guest. We got to talk to Charli. And so what are your thoughts as you heard Charli and you just start to set our team up for really, how do they manage success and struggle?
Yeah. I mean, we know the principles, and this is like so many things in life. Putting them into practice and actually leaning into them on a daily basis in a practice, and for coaches, it's actually in the gym.
Yeah.
Is way. I mean, it's a skill in and of itself that coaches have to practice. and you know, she has, in terms of what kind of language is going, how are we going to reinforce mistakes in an authentic way? Because if kids are anything, they can tell when you're going, oh yeah, okay, way to fail at that box out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, is how do you translate this into words? And I know I've heard, for instance, Kevin Hambley talk, who is the Stanford women's volleyball coach, about you're trying to teach a player to hit the ball down the line and they hit the ball out of bounds. And what do? What's your body language? Is your body language, okay, you don't have to say anything. You just said that I wanted you to work on hitting the ball down the line, and it's going to be okay with me if you fail. And you failed, and I, just by slumping slightly on the sideline, said it wasn't okay. And so all of that, nonverbal communication, what does my face say? And so we have to rejigger our own thinking, if you will, to be able to do this as coaches, because we're in a scorekeeping profession. You know, you're either 2 points up with that basket, or maybe 3, or you're 2 points out by that failure to box out, and now you're down by 4. And so really, I think being intentional with your staff, maybe doing even some role playing of, you know, watching film with your staff and saying, okay, oh, look at, oh, and it's like, all right, that's a natural, normal emotion. Now, what are we going to do when the team's in here?
Yeah. Now, Kathy, Charli referred to mindset mastery, and I think that is a beautiful description of really training our mind for the mindset that we believe in as a culture, for our team, or as parents, whatever it is that we're going to believe in and stand for. Then we've got to train our mind to actually be in alignment with it. So, for example, if I'm going to say, failure's okay, or, you know, you're going to learn from failure, or fail forward, or failure and figure it out. If I'm going to be saying those words, and yet in my mind, in my heart, in my body language, I'm screaming something very different, that's pure confusion. And that's where that confusion comes up. And especially when we talk about as women, we take things personal. So I'm going to be, and I'm also in relationship with you. So if I'm in relationship with you and I'm believing you and I'm trusting you and I'm relying on you, I'm vulnerable with you, you know, you're my coach, and this matters, this relationship matters tremendously to me. And I'm being vulnerable by even showing up and trying all the new things you're telling me to try and do all the new things you want me to do. I got social media that I could look like a fool on. I've got my parents at home saying, why aren't you playing, or why aren't you starting? I mean, there's a lot of conversations in my head, and I'm going for it. I'm going to have the courage to actually step into this growth mindset as we train them to do. And then the minute I do it and I look at you for that reassurance that, am I okay? And I'm not, every part of all the training that we've done is gone like that, because, you know, the actions and the words did not align. So I think this is very, very important as women, as females, as we really learn to honor being vulnerable, honor being in relationship, honor having a huge heart, you know, honor whoever we are, and that we need each other. We need to get along with the coach. We need to figure this out. We need to get along with our teammates. We can't just pull back in and be like, okay, I'm going to do it my way. So what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, what we're pushing against, I mean, this is a Sisyphean task, because we are pushing against all of the narratives about sport and how people improve and how people get better. I mean, I know that you're very close and familiar with the John Wooden philosophy of coaching, and you've studied it. And we all know about his success with championships. What we have to explain, I think, to today's coaches who potentially have no idea who John Wooden is, other than maybe they've seen his line on a poster someplace. And, you know, it's, why is the poster for this a man who has been out of coaching for 40 years? Mm-hmm. If this works so great, why isn't everybody doing it? And so, I mean, I think this also, the tapes in our head about how do you improve people by pushing them, by pointing out errors, and that error correction still absolutely has to be part of the narrative of how we reinforce improvement. In other words, a smarmy, toxic almost empathy about, hey, it's okay, you know, is not something that's going to help us be good at coaching.
Right. Well, and Kathy, thank you for that. I know, you know, Coach Wooden is near and dear to my heart and to our family. And what I valued so much about him is that he used sport to create great men. And I had the honor of, you know, having a life with one of those great men. And I can say it is a very, very authentic, transformational way of doing sport, because I know who my husband was before he met Coach, just from a perspective of being a 19-year-old somewhat superstar coming out of Santa Maria. You know, Grady wouldn't have made it to UCLA if he wasn't a superstar. He knew he was a superstar. He loved being a superstar. And he came in and he played. He was the center between Kareem and Bill Walton. So he played between two great, great superstars. And yet he really learned how to be part of a team, how to put in the effort without the playing time, knew that his time would come. His time did come, you know, trusting the process. Every single thing that we say to this day, Coach was doing it a very long time ago. And it did produce great championships and great men. And what's ironic about that is, like you said, if it worked then, why have we gotten so far away from it? And great question to ponder. I don't know that answer. What I really love about our conversation is being able to have Coach Wooden as somewhat the male version of it, And what are we discovering as women? And, he knew what he wanted to do with his men, and he studied it. He was a teacher first, and he studied it. Are we as women really being that intentional to understand who we are as women? And then how can we coach up young women to be able to be great women in their entire life versus the somewhat season of 4 years that we may get them in college? And I believe Charli, that's why Charli and I have been together for 18 years. We really rely on each other, trust each other, because we believe in that. And we want to figure out how to do it.
Well, part of what we talked about with her and what she talked about is vulnerability. And so it's what are the ways that coaches create safe spaces? Okay, because again, I think we're all going to mess up. I mean, we're going to want to have this growth mindset and everything else and stuff, and then we're going to struggle with it. And it's not going to feel like it. And when we lose a close game, and maybe it's the second or third one that we've lost, and we're laying awake at night and we're watching the film back and forth, and we're not pleased with the performance of our team and those kinds of things. And so now, how do we coach them up without separating from them? And, she wasn't going to be definitive on this, but certainly said her experience is that women expect some vulnerability from their leaders. They expect a realness. They expect a relationship that says, I'm not here and you're here, but that yes, you're the leader, but that we're in this struggle together. Yeah. And I don't know if that is the same for male leaders. In fact, I think it's not. And in fact, that vulnerability can be viewed as a weakness in a male leader. And so as we're talking about how women win our way, what is this idea of showing who I really am? And maybe it goes down to, as we're talking again about interweaving growth mindset, a timeout where you look them in the eye and you go, I have to tell you, I'm really struggling with a growth mindset right now because I'm quite upset with how we are playing.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it comes down to truth, right? I mean, being real.
And now if the relationship is strong, I mean, one of the things that I saw Pat Head Summit do in a timeout where they just stuck a microphone in the middle of it. It was a very critical point in a game, and one of her better players had gotten scored on a couple of times. And in this timeout, I mean, Pat, you remember the eyes and the look and everything. I mean, there was nothing namby-pamby about what she said, but what she said was, is that the best that you can give to this group of people?
Right.
Can you look your teammates in the eye and say, hey, I'm doing my part? Okay, so it was direct. It was candid. It was critical, but it was either going to work or not work based on the relationship that those players had with each other and with her, and that for that particular player, she didn't want to let down the group.
Right. Well, Kathy, you just brought up the winning strategy for women is that we want to feel connected. And so what she did in that little piece of film is that she didn't go at her personally and say, why did you do that? You suck. How could you do that? She connected her to her teammates. And that's that relationship component. And that's the winning strategy as women is keep me part of a team, give me purpose to be for my team, give me a role, let me take care of my team, right? Which she did in a beautiful way, versus make me feel bad in front of my team, make me feel like I let my team down. I mean, we could change those words just a little bit and you would get a much different answer or a much different response if it came out with, why are you letting your team down like that? Or how could you let your team down like that? I mean, immediately now I'm going internal that I have failed my team. And as a woman, there's nothing worse for me than to feel like I failed anybody, myself, anyone. So I do think that's a beautiful model of how to really manage struggle authentically and to set your team up for success by being real about it, and then being able to come back and be like, okay, well, I need you. We need each other. How can we be for each other in a bigger way? And Charli talked about that in really her, getting outside of yourself. That is her model of how to do that, is to let go of me, step into we, look to your right, look to your left. How can I help the people that I stand beside every day to get better?
Yeah, I mean, it's good messaging, and obviously Charli has had a lot of success with building that commitment between teammates, because yeah, as much as we say, all right, we don't want to guilt people and that kind of stuff, I'm not so sure that's not true. I think what Pat was doing was guilt. Is this it? Is this your best?
Well, or could it be
Your
that she
best.
was challenging her? I mean, I'm gonna, I'm not a fan of the guilt word, so I'm just, but I mean, or was she challenging her to be better, which is what we want to do as women, right? As women, can you and I have a strong enough relationship? And you and I are learning to do this, right? When I say something or you say something, we come back and we're like, is that really the best we can do? Or, why are we doing it this way? Or why are we doing it that way? And that is our desired outcome of the journey that we are taking ourselves on, and everybody that gets on the journey with us, is just that moment of pause, that ability to be courageous and curious and say, can we challenge ourselves to be better and stay authentic to ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think just unpack the guilt word a little bit. I think if it's manipulative,
Right.
it's no good. But I remember I grew up in a home with parents who didn't yell and scream. And there were times that I wish they would have.
Mm.
What they did when we messed up, did something that they didn't want, is you'd have to sit in the living room with them and they would start with, I'm so disappointed.
Mm.
Okay, well, it was immediate tears. And why was that? It was guilt. It's like, you have loved me. We knew that.
Yeah.
And I messed up and I feel terrible about it. And so it really is, again, it wasn't done manipulatively.
Right.
At that point in time, I wish they would have just screamed, because if they would have screamed at me, I could have fought back against the screaming.
Yeah.
Okay. But I couldn't fight back against this, that I had disappointed them. And so I guess that's the context in which I say building those strong connections as the foundation, and then transparency, honesty, but there's still, I mean, Carlette, I don't, and Charli spoke to this, there's nothing easy or soft or, and if you would approach it that way, again, athletes would see through it so quickly. You can't, somebody who messed up knows they messed up.
Right.
And if
Right.
you're somehow saying, hey, that was great, it's like, what are you, a whack job? That was terrible.
Yeah. In fact, I had one of my athletes, she had a terrible practice and she said, her coach said, good job. And she's like, it wasn't a good job. I did a terrible job today. Right. So Kathy, to your point, like we have to be honest. It's not a matter of, oh, good job on that. It's no, you know what, how do you want to get better? Or what do you want to do different? Or it's really challenging us to be our best self, not settle for kind of being okay with things, and having that relationship to be able to accept the challenge or to receive the guilt. And I do want to talk, Kathy, just in our kind of finishing up here, is that concept of like loving your teammates, because I think that's another male-female difference, is that for me, when we talk about loving our teammates, we're on a team together professionally, and we are committed to the purpose of playing the sport that we've signed a contract to sign and to play. And so it really is in that dimension of my profession. And so I'm going to do everything I can to be a successful teammate and to take care of that. So when I talk about loving our teammates, we have to love the journey that we're on together as teammates. We won't necessarily want to be friends off the court or really have this great camaraderie. And sometimes that gets really, brought together in a way where it's like, oh, we've got to just be together all the time. We've got to love each other. I don't believe that works. I think that's really hard on women, because if we don't authentically feel it, we don't want to fake it. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy to fake it. And then we're dreading kind of everything. Just that ability to be able to separate it, to know we're honoring ourselves, we're being strong women, we're in relationship, we're committed to loving the purpose of why we all came together. And we can go off and have a personal life that's different, that really helps us fulfill ourselves to get ourselves ready to show up great. What are your thoughts as the research, everything you've done from a female perspective? What do you think on that thought?
Well, I think a whole lot of it is how we define family. All right. And we can use the family analogy, I think. Okay. So again, some of it depends on what is family. So when I hear somebody say that our team is like a family, all right, for me, again, some of this is going to be personal context. For me, that means that I know there is a relational bond here that will not be broken, no matter how much we fight with each other.
Unconditional
no matter
love.
how much we are different from each other. So whatever, we can be on opposite ends of the political spectrum. In my family, we're on opposite ends of as kids, we don't know how we came out of the same parents. Opposite ends of the political spectrum. We can be different in terms of our closely held religious beliefs. We cannot like the people that our spouses decided to establish their life with, the whole in-law thing. And in fact, we might even not choose a sister or brother. We wouldn't be in relationship with them if they weren't in our family.
Right.
Okay? To me, that kind of family is a functional team, because there's room for difference, there's room for dispute, there's room for heated arguments, because we're still family. And so that kind of a situation, I always try and unpack that with somebody when they say our workplace is like a family or our team is like a family. My first question always is, okay, tell me about your family.
Yeah, because I need to be able to get this right, right?
Yeah. Oh, we're best friends. We do everything together. We'd rather be together than be anywhere else. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't my family.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think is incredibly important for us to learn as women and women in groups and women in relationships is how to deal with conflict, as opposed to that because we're in relationship, we're not going to have it.
Right. Totally opposite. The more relationship we're in, the more conflict we'll have because our hearts are engaged.
And because we feel like we're in a safe space, that even though it'd be like, all right, you know what, I'm walking out of this room because I'm going to either say something or you're going to say something we're going to regret and everything else. But we know at some point we're going to walk back in.
Right. Well, I think that's to be continued. This is part of the journey that we're on: conflict, failure, really how struggle creates success. This is just the beginning, team. So thank you for joining us today. If you want to be involved with us, or if you'd like more information, go to howwomenwin.com. That's howwomenwin.com. Kathy and I are here every week with a new guest and really unpacking these 10 questions. And then Kathy and I will unpack it even more, figuring it out as we go through the journey. So thank you, Kathy, again, for being on this journey and for just setting our team up to really start to understand how women win our way.
Thank you, Carlette.
Okay, team, go out and discover your definition of winning, your definition of family, any words that you're using. How do you define them? And are the people that you're working with or in relationship, do they define them the same way? Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.